Greetings! You're watching Septum Sen versus the World. I'm Septum Sen, and I'm here with Kotobuki Jake.
Hi.
And we are here to keep you informed about those movies coming to DVD and Blu-ray this week. And if
Despite the best efforts of food.
and if my cat won't keep throwing this thing off of the run. Of course, keeping my runtime down, I now know why people on YouTube talk so fast. Alright, first up, we've got Wolf Warrior 2 from Well Go USA. In case you weren't following in Wolf Warrior 1, we're dealing with China's deadliest special forces operative here. And he's leading the quiet life, you know? You settle down after you've killed a bunch of people. And then you gotta do that until some mercenaries, they target the civilians nearby. And then you gotta get in there and just start, punching them and doing all the warrior things that, China's deadliest special forces person does. And that's what Wolf Warrior 2 is about.
We had a couple of those kind of movies this week, didn't we?
Well Go is good for that. You get one I've never heard of.
I think you covered most of what I got on Wolf Warrior. Chinese film, by the way, I think it was.
Yeah, sounds
okay,
like it.
So next up we have a Funimation release. It's called Trickster, Part 1. Because after all, it's Funimation, so of course it's a Part 1.
Yeah.
Kensuke is an adrenaline junkie and a member of the Boys Detectives Club. Always ready to jump into action, he stumbles upon a mysterious boy named Kobayashi who cannot die. Together, they face danger known as the Villain 20 Faces.
Dun dun dun!
And that's really, between Right Stuff and Anime News Network, that's about all I got off of that series. It's not one I think I'd ever heard of before. It has a middling rating on ANN. It sounds kind of interesting, but not one that I plan to rush out and get. But
Yeah, to me it looks like another one of those little quirky detective ones that I've seen up and down. I mean, Conan is of course the number one when it comes to detective, but you had Detective Academy Q that you liked.
I enjoyed that, yes.
And I've liked a couple of those type. There was one, Gosick was amazing. They did that detective thing for that with a twist. Who knows?
I still need to watch my copy of Ungo. But
It sounds so familiar to me. Boy Who Couldn't. I don't know. Maybe I've seen seen it on streaming one day. I don't know.
maybe.
Well, this third one is actually again part 2 of season 3 of D. Gray Man. I just recently started to acquire the series because I wasn't going to acquire a series that was not complete. And 50 episodes is not complete. I want to say it's around 100 and some episodes total. And I'm glad that they're finally moving forward. I'm going to wait until they combine it. But this is part 2 of season 3, so that's 65 to 77. And for those who are actually interested, D. Gray Man is more of a shonen series, combining a lot of arcane with various other dark themes. It's a very interesting series. Facing this guy, this guy corrupts the hearts of people, turning them into these puppet-looking things, and our main character has to go and take him down. And the Millennium Earl is this weird, creepy guy in a top hat who goes around and does this stuff. In this season, he's going to reclaim his lost innocence, the main character. While he fights on, his comrades make the dangerous journey to Edo only to come face to face with the Millennium Earl. Battle for Japan begins. Yeah.
You forgot the fun part. Their only hope lies with God's clown.
Yeah, it would be.
Anyway, talking about things not getting released and everything, you're just talking about Case Closed. When do you think they're going to finish that one?
Never.
They should.
It's not finished in Japan. It's like over 1,000 episodes.
Now, I'm a little puzzled here, though. You have this next one listed as Collection 2, but episodes 1 to 12?
That's how Right Stuff had it. Maybe it's like a second series, and
I'm pretty sure I know there is an animation There is one called The Animation, and I think this is a live action from the pictures.
Looks like a live action.
So maybe that's what that's about. But anyway, we're talking about Garo. And this is listed as Garo TV Collection 2. It's by Kraken releasing. For thousands of years, the Makai Knights and their allies have fought a secret war against the horrors. But now the threads of trust that have held the knights together are unraveling. As Koga and Zaruba continue to seek a cure for Kauru's lethal exposure to horror blood, the tension between the current wearer of the golden Garo armor and the wearer of the silver Zero armor, Rei, hits the breaking point. Was Koga somehow responsible for the death of Rei's family? Why are the watchdogs forcing them to work together when they know what Rei believes? And meanwhile, will Kaoru's trusted advisor turn out to have the darkest secret of all? Friends die, love shatters, heroes fall, and monsters reign in a spectacular conclusion. Okay, so it says conclusion here. So maybe Right Stuff had the wrong episode count.
Maybe
I don't
it was
know.
like 2 to 20, not 2
I
to
don't
24. Yeah, that would mean the first collection have one episode.
But basically, Garo is one that I've known of for a while. And again, I knew there was one called Garo the Animation. But this does look like a live-action series. And it's interesting because not many of those get released here. So I am curious, if only for that.
I want to see the Cutie Honey live action released here.
I know. There's so many that need it.
But he's exposed to horror blood. That's the worst kind.
I know. Man, but I am looking forward to this next series.
Yeah, I was thinking you probably have better ideas what this one was than I did.
Yeah.
Which is Chiaka, the Coffin Princess. Complete series. So that's series 1 and 2. So you got yourself 23 episodes worth on there. And so it's the war with the Gaz Empire ended with the act of cutting the Emperor's body into pieces, which were then carried off across the kingdoms. Without a war to fight, it didn't take much convincing for unemployed saboteur Toru Akura and his sister Akari to join a coffin-carrying girl on her ghoulish mission of gathering those severed parts. But is Chiaka, okay, I was getting it right, the dead man's daughter, picking up pieces for burial, or is there something far more sinister in the works? As rumors come forth of other identical girls engaged in the same task, the winds of war seem to be stirring, and there are those who believe that rejoining the Emperor's scattered body could unleash a new nightmare. At long last, both series of Chiaka are collected together in Chiaka, the Coffin Princess, and Chiaka, the Coffin Princess Avenging Battle. Yep. Okay.
This is another one of Sentai's combination sets.
Yeah.
And we got another one coming up in a minute that I brought
That's an awesome
something
set.
for. But this is one that caught my attention when it came out. But to be honest, I don't think I ever realized how ghoulish the plot was. It's actually appropriate that they're doing these two series at the same time. But it looks really fun and real interesting. But anyway, the next one, the other one that they're combining, I brought all 3 of their previous releases. If you've watched this channel before, you've heard us comment about Higurashi no Nako Kore ni, aka When They Cry. It is a favorite of mine. I don't know why. I don't usually go for this kind of show, but it is a favorite of mine. This is how the release currently looks. When They Cry, the first series, Kai, and Rei.
And that's how it used to look.
That is how he has the Genian old school art box that sold for $400 until Sentai finally licensed it. This was a show that was one of the victims of Genian going under. Funimation picked it up but didn't know what to do with it and dropped it like a hot rock. Sentai finally got it after people like us spent several years bitching that it was not available. And these 2 parts were never released until Sentai got involved. But the important thing here, this series is a perfectly serviceable horror series on its own, Groundhog Day style. And there is a plot point involving a mutilated corpse, which is why I said it's appropriate. This is a murder mystery that solves all the problems of the first series.
Really makes the story
It completes
work.
the story. This part was wholly unnecessary, but it's interesting. There's 2 standalone, amusing shorts that completely break canon, and a 3-episode arc that throws a whole new twist into the story. But it's a great series, and being, this in of itself doesn't take up a lot of shelf space, but being able to condense it even more. And if you didn't already have the individual collections, this is a real good way to get it. If you don't have When They Cry, it is a highly recommended show. Yes.
Oh, very good, very good. So, another one I didn't put much on was Kingsman 2 Full Circle. I mean, really and truly, if you love the Kingsman series or enjoyed the first movie, you'll enjoy this one. I have not seen it myself.
I've heard mixed reports on that.
I've heard it's entertaining.
Yeah.
But it has that same tongue-in-cheek humor and ultra-violence, as they would say.
A little of the old ultra-violence. Yes.
That was, well known from the first one. The first one being sort of a James Bond spoof. And it was, like I say, it was something that you really have to see to enjoy.
It was a James Bond meets Deadpool kind of movie. It was good times.
It was good, and I think that anybody, if you have not seen the Kingsman series, check out the first movie. If you like that, go for this one. Then send me your copy because I can't really afford it right now. So give it to me.
I really wanted to see this one in theaters, and it's one of the... Every year there's movies I just don't make it to go see, and I still want to. I have a hold on it at the library. I will be getting this one to watch as soon as I can. Don't know how soon I'll get it. But I do know this one brings in the American counterpart. I think they're called the Statesmen.
Oh.
And it's like Jeff Bridges and Channing Tatum and some of the others. Colin Firth somehow comes back. If you saw the first movie, you know that's kind of weird. And Julianne Moore plays a sociopathic villain in this one. And apparently Elton John's in it. So,
hey, working right there. Best Buy is coming out with steelbook releases of the original and this one on that day.
Not to mention the main guy is played by Taron Egerton, and he is a really good actor. He really is kind of burst onto the scene with this one, and man. I was trying to think of a movie, and it's blanking. But also Eddie the Eagle was a fun movie. But anyway, so I guess I'm up on the next one, huh?
Yeah, next 2, really.
We have another 2 releases for the Game of Thrones series. We have, I think, mentioned Game of Thrones before. It's a show that I think most people have heard of at this point. Season 7 is getting released, and they're putting out a 1 through 7 collection. I don't know why they're calling it Complete Series 1 to 7, considering that Season 8 is coming out soon. But it is a 1 through 7 collection.
Yep.
And for those who have not been collecting it and want to get a whole bunch all in one fell swoop, it's a great way to do it. If you have been getting them individually, here's your chance at Season 7. I think at this point, if you kind of have an idea if you're going to end up collecting this one or not. But it's out there, and maybe one day they'll finish the show and there'll be an actual complete collection.
So this next one looks interesting, actually. It's called Detroit. It's a fact-based drama set during the 1967 Detroit riots, in which a group of rogue police officers respond to a complaint with retribution rather than justice on their minds. Now, with today's overtones, when you really hear this, it's interesting when you look at it and you realize this is not new. The stuff that we're dealing with today, it's not new.
Yeah.
We were talking about something about the Punisher series coming out,
Oh.
and about how they have to handle that with kid gloves because of what's going on these days. But it's nothing new. But this is something that is worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely want to check it out when I get the money to do
Well,
so.
and I've also got this one on hold. I actually put a hold on it almost as soon as it went up in the library system.
For what?
And it is very notable to mention that Detroit, this itself may be a source of controversy for some people, is directed by Catherine Bigelow and written by Mark Bohm. So it's the same writer-director team behind The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. So, for something so tinged in race relations, some people are kind of probably going to go, huh? But for people who saw those movies, you know that it's going to be a pretty
well
interesting,
I
So
expect
it'll be
a lot.
worth watching. And then you give me really, of all the... you give me this one.
Hey, it's Reese Witherspoon.
We have two Reese Witherspoon movies in a row, and he gave me the... Okay.
The great one.
Anyway, this one recently separated from her husband. Incidentally, the movie is called Home Again. Recently separated from her husband, Alice Witherspoon decides to start over by moving back to her hometown of Los Angeles with her two young daughters. During a night out on her 40th birthday, Alice meets three aspiring filmmakers who happen to be in need of a place to live. Alice agrees to let the guys stay in her guest house temporarily, but the arrangement ends up unfolding in unexpected ways. Are they really unexpected? I don't know. Alice's unlikely new family and a new romance comes to a crashing halt when her ex-husband shows up, suitcase in hand. Apparently, she opened up a bed and breakfast and didn't even realize it.
Yep. Home Again.
I don't know. It's supposed to be a really good kind of uplifting, family-friendly kind of... Very different from the other Witherspoon movie on here. But the reception was kind of meh.
Well,
Most people were kind of like...
some more recent Reese Witherspoon versus something from the past.
Yes, a blast from the past.
Which actually I'm surprised
Yes.
that Criterion is releasing this. But
I'm not.
Election,
I'm not at all.
which, the of course thing is, perky, overachieving Tracy Flick, played by Reese Witherspoon, gets on the nerves of history teacher Jim McAllister, played by Matthew Broderick. To begin with, but after she launches her campaign for high school president, this personal life starts to fall apart. Things spiral out of control. In Alexander Payne's satire Election, the teacher becomes unhealthily obsessed with cutting his students down to size.
Student.
Oh, student. Yeah, well. Sorry, reading here. Covertly backing a spoiler candidate to stop her from steamrolling to victory, and putting in motion a series of dirty tricks and reckless promises with absurdity of a central dynamic in the recognizable
You skipped the
Oh,
whole-
okay, yeah, okay. World. Basically, let's just say this is a satire dealing with the elections. Well, actually, real world elections, as told by a high school point of view, and in a slightly comedic way in many ways, if
Yeah.
I'm remembering correctly.
It's a dark satire.
Very dark.
Very
but
dark,
It's
yeah.
been a long time since I've seen
Yeah.
it. And I guess with this day and age, it does fit that they would release this now.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that when we're seeing a Criterion release, it isn't like 2017 release or 2016 release.
Yeah.
Finally getting one that's a little bit older.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. anyway.
It's worth it to see.
It is. Now, you said you're surprised. I'm not at all surprised. It's an Alexander Payne film, and the critics love Alexander Payne. But that was kind of the movie. I think that was the movie kind of put him on the map, really. But it was one of the movies that helped put Witherspoon on the map. She had quietly been building a career. This was like the year after Cruel Intentions, and but that was kind of one of the ones where people were really like, damn, she can act. Yeah. Well, anyway, so my next one is a Shout Factory release, apparently. And it's the newest in what appear to be a unscripted not documentary, but not exactly. They're not scripted movies, is my understanding at any rate. And we've got two of them in the library that I've been kind of curious about.
The third in those.
Yeah, it's the third in the series. This is called The Trip to Spain. It follows up The Trip. Yeah, The Trip.
Yeah.
And I think the other one's called A Trip to Italy. And it pairs Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. And basically, they just go around testing the culinary offerings of a particular region, all the while acting to their heart's content to do whatever they want. It's kind of like, my understanding is it's basically a mockumentary, but very much less scripted, more improv. It sounds very interesting.
The Trip was excellent.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting and worth a look, especially if you've already been watching this series. I'm sure you'd love to see what they do in Spain.
Well, the rain in Spain falls on the plane.
But mainly.
Mainly. Alright, so, from Kino.
The other Wolf Warrior one of the week.
Actually, a defining film for our friend Chuck Norris is Code of Silence, from the director of The Fugitive. Basically, it's a very turbocharged action flick.
Yeah.
You know, Chuck Norris got his reputation from somewhere, and this was one of the main defining ones. I saw it back with my father a long time ago. He loved Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris is playing a detective who plays by his own rules. A dangerous habit, especially when he breaks his code of silence. To blow the lid off of the deadly police cover-up. Now an outcast, he receives little help from his embittered fellow officers as he's hurled into a blistering battle against rival drug kingpins. And he takes them all down, blindfolded, on one foot.
With one hand behind. Yes.
Oh my God. But
and with a muzzle on his beard.
But you know, this is one of those that's really cool. And plus it has a remote-controlled rocket-equipped tank. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
And this is apparently a pretty spiffed-up release of the series, if I remember correctly.
Kino does a great job with their releases. It's like, I've seen a lot of these lately. You've got these companies, Shout Factory, Kino, Arrow. These are like spectacular in their releases. Kind of makes you sit there and go, Criterion is really good, but these people are almost taking that Criterion standard and applying it to those films. And
a really weird side note, both of these special editions, The Code of Silence and Election, I don't remember her name offhand, but there's an actress who's in both films and actually has an interview on The Code of Silence. That was like one of the promoted things on Amazon. I was like, isn't that something? So, now I get a faith-based film. Lovely. Not to knock them to anyone that, you know. Anyway, from Sony Pictures, we have All Saints. All Saints is based on the inspiring true story of salesman-turned-pastor Michael Spurlock, played by John Corbett, the tiny church he was ordered to shut down, and a group of refugees from Southeast Asia. Together they risked everything to plant seeds for a future that might just save them all. Now, this is another one of those movies that obviously got off to kind of a slow start in terms of the number of people that watched it. IMDb only has a modest number of votes, and it has kind of a middling rating. Most of these faith-based ones tend to have really high ratings out of the gate, but this one has a middling rating. Honestly, I mostly know John Corbett from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I haven't seen much else from him. The movie sounds vaguely interesting. I may see it one day, but yeah.
So, England is Mine, On Becoming Morrissey.
Was that part of the title?
Yeah. It actually is on there. You have to zoom in to the actual DVD case. I've been trying to do better because you say I'm not getting all the titles. So
Okay.
I'm doing my work here.
Yeah, okay.
Doing my homework. Stephen, better known to most as Morrissey, frontman of iconic band The Smiths, is a restless young man struggling to escape his working class roots. He dreams of being in a band, writing music, and flying clear of the daily grind. Suddenly, a chance encounter with guitarist Billy leads to a first gig. Can Stephen find his own path and find an England of his own? Oh, kind of tear to my eye there. But it's beautiful. Beautiful, man. And to tell you the truth, I'm not even familiar with the music.
I'm not as much as I should be. I mean, everyone knows of the Smiths. Well, maybe not everyone, but enough people.
Morrissey, anyway.
And Morrissey is, yeah. And from what I read, this is a movie that went down reasonably well. His fan base, those that saw it, seemed to think it was a good movie. Which is better than we can say for some of the musical biopics that came out this year.
Yeah. Well.
I recently saw a list that listed All Eyes on Me as one of the worst films of the year. You know.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't very accurate.
Right. No, it was a Wikipedia movie. Anyway, yeah, so that one will probably be worth seeing eventually. The next one I'm curious about, and I'll bet you really wanted to cover the Trauma one, but they're...
Yeah, I know, but I had to get one or the other, and it just came there.
Okay, this one is from Trauma Entertainment, and it is called The Middle Finger. Whenever there's trouble, send the middle finger, in all caps. Dennis, an awkward teenager, finds himself down on his luck when he's held back from school, while his friends have moved on and started college. As if that's not bad enough, he finds his world is turned upside down when he's visited by a being from another world and transformed into a superhero, tasked with saving the world. The problem is, he's got no clue how to use his powers, no idea how to find his enemy, and on top of everything, his head has been turned into a giant hand giving the finger. I have to admit, the premise to this movie is kind of okay.
Well, you know that Trauma's going to have some sort of gross special effects in it.
Yeah, and that worries me a little bit.
But personally, if there is any one of these that you would buy on release, I would suggest getting this one. Not because, and I've ordered it myself, not necessarily because I'm saying this is the greatest film, but because it's Trauma. Trauma does not release that much these days.
That's true.
And everything that they release goes out of print very quickly. And those trauma videos themselves and their DVDs are worth a fortune usually.
So you need to watch this very quickly so that I know if it's one I would want to see.
I mean, right now it's like $12. $12 and some change. So, to me it's not that bad for something recently released that's going to compound in value.
Mm-hmm.
But like they say on the infomercials, act fast, supplies are running low.
Indeed, yes.
So, you've been filled in this week. We managed to cut down the time a little bit, but we also were helped by the fact that the release schedule was a little bit bare this time around.
A huge amount. There's some exciting stuff coming up in the next couple weeks, but including one item that got pushed back a month, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, it's been pushed back, but we'll talk a little bit more of that on the on our next video.
All right.
So I will see you in the next releases.
All right.